I'm Geet, and so this is just a practice presentation for my HDR seminar, which is only meant to be 8 minutes long. So I will be timing this. If you've got any questions, could you please save it for the end, and then I'll do my best to answer it. And also, because it's only 8 minutes, I'll be going over things really briefly. So if you would want me to expand on anything, just let me know at the end as well. Okay. So I'm going to be talking about the general plan for my PhD thesis, which is on body image and how it affects well-being and what other factors would affect this dynamic. So these women are considered to be plus-size models. The people that we want to look like don't look like themselves in beauty magazines. And shows such as this kind of portray overweight individuals in a very negative light and say that it's okay to fat shame. So it's no wonder then that words such as these are used to describe overweight individuals. And it's one of the few forms of stigma that I still seem to be acceptable in today's society, because people view weight as something that is controllable as opposed to something like race. And I would absolutely love to be able to change that environment, but for now I think perhaps it's better to focus on enabling people to live well within such environments. And body image dissatisfaction is something that arises because of all of the stigma. And it is basically the negative evaluation of one's own body, weight and shape. And it is extremely common, so much so that it's more the norm to have such issues rather than the exception. And about 60 to 70% of the population will have such issues. And it is prevalent in both women and men. And it begins during early childhood with reported cases of 5-year-old kids with body dysmorphic disorder. And it persists across the lifespan with people as old as 60 years of age having such issues. And it has been linked to a lot of negative outcomes, such as eating pathology, reduced exercise, higher levels of depression and anxiety, lower self-esteem, and poorer quality of life. But does that mean that everyone with such issues will have lower well-being? I would certainly hope not, and I think there's a lot of other factors that influence this relationship, and today I'm going to be talking about 2 of these. The first one being psychological flexibility, which is the idea that if you are having negative thoughts or are in a negative environment, you will still go ahead and do things that are of value to you. And it has been shown to have psychological benefits. And the opposite of that would be inflexibility, which is where you would give in to your negative thoughts and stop yourself from doing things that you would value. So for example, if I want to go swimming, you'll think that, oh, I can't go swimming because no one would ever want to see me in a swimming costume. So instead of going out and having fun at swimming, I stay at home and don't do that. So I'm avoiding the behaviors that I want to engage in, and therefore limiting the range of behaviors that I engage in. The second one would be self-compassion, which in broad terms is the idea that you treat yourself with the same kindness and compassion that you would treat someone that you really care about, rather than in a self-critical or harsh way. And it has been shown to have a lot of psychological benefits, such as increasing psychological health, psychological strength, lesser distress, more appreciation, and lesser shame and other self-conscious emotions. So you can see that both self-compassion and psychological flexibility would be useful for someone that has body image issues and would sort of prevent them from having lower well-being. Okay, so this is just the general model of my thesis, and I'll go through it by referring to a prospective study that we hope to do in a private girls' school. So hopefully we'll have about 700 girls between grade 7 to 11. And we'll be focusing on body image satisfaction and how it links with well-being. That would be the core of the thesis. And on the context side of things, with the environment, we'll be looking at things like stigma or weight-based teasing, and what your peers think about overweight individuals and how that would correlate with your own body image and your own well-being. And on the other side of the character strands and the internal things like self-compassion, psychological flexibility that's body image based, and also how much you internalize social cultural standards of appearance, and again how that affects body image and also well-being. Taking this one step further, we'd be looking at the moderating effects of character strengths on the relationship between body image and well-being. And if you notice that I say ways to well-being that would then lead to well-being, and by that I mean there's this new measure that we're working on, which is a behavioral measure rather than something that's based on subjective feelings. And so we ask people to name explicit typical behavior that they engage in under these categories. So for example, I really like music, so under challenging myself, I would say I just started to learn how to play the guitar, and yeah. So taking from the model, these would be the hypotheses for my PhD. The first one being that if you are stigmatized, so the higher level of stigma, and worse anti-fat attitudes of the people around you would lead you to have a higher body image dissatisfaction, which would then lead you to do fewer things that would affect well-being. But if you are someone with higher character strengths such as psychological flexibility and self-compassion, you will still engage in more behaviors that are of value, even if you do have a higher body image dissatisfaction. So the implications would be that we would have a deeper understanding of how your peers and their attitudes would affect how you think about your own body. And if we find that the character strengths do moderate this relationship between body image and well-being, we can then aim future interventions at increasing character strength rather than trying to reduce body image dissatisfaction, or both of those in combination. And to end, I would like to paraphrase Rachel Dawes from Batman by saying that it's not what you look like, but what you do that defines you. Thank you.
Do you expect that the model will work similarly for both males and females?
So dissatisfaction is prevalent in both male and females, but it is a bit more complicated than saying women are more dissatisfied than men, because if you look at the cultural standards of appearance, for females it's generally you need to look thinner, but for males it's a lot more, there are a lot more factors such as more muscle, weight, so when you can't really say a higher BMI would lead you to have lower body image satisfaction. It would be, whether you want to have more muscle weight, less fat, and so research has actually shown that half of the male population that are dissatisfied would want to be heavier than they are, and half of them would want to be lower. So I do think it would work similarly, but there are a lot more factors to consider.
Yeah, and how about the link between body image dissatisfaction and well-being? Do you think that'd be similar for guys and girls? Once that actually is established, body image dissatisfaction?
Yeah, I would think if you're more satisfied with your body, you would engage in things that are of value.
Do you give any specific hypotheses about body image satisfaction and the particular types of ways to well-being? Are you expecting it to be more strongly associated with some of those ways?
Yeah, let me just go back to that. Okay, so I would imagine that if you are more satisfied with your body, you would engage in more social interactions, so connecting with others and giving to others would be higher. And being physically active as well, because having dissatisfaction is actually counterintuitive. You would think that if you're not satisfied, you would go out and do exercise, but that's actually not the case. There's actually exercise avoidance and eating as a coping strategy. So I would say being physically active and also caring for yourself would increase. Yeah.
Can you give a longer spiel on this measure? How's it going to look?
Okay.
What are kids going to do? How are you then going to score it?
Sure. So they'll just be asked to name explicit typical behaviors that they engage in. They'll be given examples of each of these so they understand more about what they are. So for giving to others, they'd be like volunteer work or helping someone cross the street or something like that. And then they'd be asked to say what the behavior is and how satisfied they are with how frequently they do it, and whether these behaviors come from because they want to do it themselves or they feel a sense of pressure from outside to do it, or a sense of guilt. So just all of those will have separate examples.
And will there be a count? So having 6 things.
So I think we're going to stop at 2 behaviors for each of those, because otherwise that's just an extremely long measure. But even just the 2, because sometimes people would probably say things that like you can sort of tell that it's just, if it's like an actual behavior or just something that they want to do. So we've got some data, and some of it will be like, oh, I want to do this more, rather than I'm doing this. And and if they say like, I can't think of another one or something like that.
But it's a satisfaction rating rather than a frequency count of behaviour, is that right?
Sorry about it.
It's how satisfied they are with the amount that they're doing that behaviour as opposed to how often, I think.
Yeah. So it's just how satisfied you are with the frequency rather than the actual
But also
frequency.
counts of
Yeah.
how many of these there are.
Yeah, I mean, but we couldn't come up with a good way to do frequency because some things could be quite infrequent, but they could be quite satisfying. So the frequency scale, imagine giving to others how often do you do it versus challenging yourself. It might be every day, it might be once a month. If you do it once a month, that might be enough. If you do it every day, it might not be enough. We couldn't figure out the scale.
Mm-hmm.
Caring for yourself, how often do you do that?
I've got a question. For me, like I do a lot of running, so if I wanted to, I'm thinking more not of frequency, but of the depth or the amount of you do it. You know what I mean? So it's not just the fact that I went on a walk. It could be like, what if I went on a half marathon run versus a walk?
Yeah.
And so that might give a different level of satisfaction too. That maybe would be good to measure.
It'd be nice if the measure is already like
It's like 74
items. Because you get basically a qualitative piece where they say what you do, and then you get like a quantitative piece, which is how satisfied are you, and then the autonomous one is you do this because you want to, you choose to, and the controlled one is I do it because I feel pressure to do it, something like that. And then you multiply that times. And then we have one where they just assess their life in general. Those are just quantitative.
Yeah. And there's also like another section, so if you think you have a behavior that doesn't really fit in any of these, then you can mention it.
Are the participants all girls, did you say?
Yeah, yes, they would be. It's just an all-girls group. But hopefully further down the line we can use the same model with other demographics and adults as well.
You could capture all the staff as well.
Yeah, we are actually.
Yeah.
We can, hopefully if ethics goes through, we can have similar scales for the staff and see how that would possibly affect them.
And if it's a private school, you might be able to get if it's a K to 6, you could get them too.
So,
Get the primary school, the younger, if it's a K to 12 school, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. The measures are the issue there. We don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar with that. Age group in terms of measures.
So why all girls at a private school? Why not girls at government schools?
it's convenient. It's just a convenient sample. And because they approached us to do some
Sounds
work.
to me like all girls is a bit of a hothouse.
Yeah.
Having taught myself in an all-boys school
Yeah.
and co-ed.
Because they could influence each other's views a lot more. Yeah.
I hope so. I mean, that's
Yeah.
we're looking for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. It would be really interesting then to see this in a co-ed school.
Yeah.
To see if peer influences are stronger, because that's kind of the implicit theory a lot of that there's a lot of pressure on girls and all girls from their peers. That and anecdotally, that seems to, I don't know, that's just what seems to be happening. What people tell me from those all girls schools.
But you have flexibility measures in the American sample, don't you?
Yes.
So you'll be able to look at it there as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just that, you have a larger sample of the general population.
We also have about 700 general population American sample, which would then be females, males, and across the age group from 18 to about 65, I think. And we've got similar measures on that study as well, so we'll be able to see the differences between the two studies and whether they're similar at all. So.
Male body dysmorphia is really interesting because it's understudied, and it's kind of hard to say what that is because some men want to be super thin, some want to be super huge and big.
Yeah, and the thing is, the measures that are used for, because people think that it's more common for females, so the measures are just about, oh, do you want to lose weight and do you not want to be fat? But for males, there's gaining weight, there's being bigger, and then there's muscle. So they're used interchangeably, but really they're three separate things. That it is understudied, but it would be interesting to see.
Mm.
Anything else? Thank you.